But this friend of mine, I've known her for many years, and I loved her. I really wanted to marry that girl. But there was something that was wrong. It never, it was just a problem. And I left and I came to America. And I ended up marrying somebody else. Which later on, I was end up in some similar some devious situations, which I wouldn't even spend the time. I could, if I told you some of those things, you would like wonder if anything could ever happen like that. But eventually, I found out that this girl who I wanted to have married before, there's a family thing with her mother, a curse put upon her that she and I could never get married. You see what I'm saying? That's what happened. And so this girl will always be alone. She's not going to have any husband. Alright? And so it was. I left her unmarried, came back, I found out she's still unmarried. Still unmarried. There's nothing wrong with her. She's healthy, she's well, she's bright. I mean, you know, I used to help her when she used to go to school and thing until she went to college and she got a degree, and she's very smart, okay? But this curse is upon her, okay? So she must always be single, and she must never get married, and she must never marry David. That was the whole idea, okay? They must never be together. It's a real thing, right? And so, the Bible talk about you wrestle against flesh and not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers. Evil, you said you're seeing this person and you're seeing these things, and you can't understand some of the things that are happening. Now, I spoke last week about when somebody tells you something, for example, and this is one of the things I had. Because when I told my ex, I said, you know, what God has shown me, but I realized that this person is causing a problem between us. And God said it to me, He said it to me. I was flying in a plane, maybe 40,000 feet in the air, coming from Calgary, right, in Canada, going to Ottawa, right, from Calgary to Ottawa. And because I asked a lot of questions about it, when He sent me on the missionary journey, and He didn't answer me when I went on was going on the flight before. So I'm coming back, and I bring a question back to God again, because I'm seeking an answer. And He said to me, He spoke to me clearly in my voice, in my ear, and He said to me, don't you notice that every time when she goes to this person, that afterward when she comes back home, you and her have a quarrel, and she's not herself. And I was like, I said, wow, but that is true. It was going on for a long while. You see, I'm not talking about the evil, because like something was just blocking me. I couldn't tell. This thing was, oh no, shucks, I broke my thing. But this thing was going on for a long while, if you know what I'm trying to say to you. And yet still, I didn't know. It took a revelation from heaven for me to realize this. And I'm saying this because the same thing happens in marriages today. Don't think it's just me alone happening. There are things that are happening right before your very eyes, and you don't even understand why it is happening. Right? And it's going to take a revelation from heaven to make you understand why it is happening. You might even think it is normal, and just maybe just like say, oh no, you know, that's how she is. She just act like that. She don't act like that. Okay? And I said to myself, I said, you know, so you're in your house with your wife, and you talking quite fine, and you know, whatever, so forth. And then she gets a call, and this person call her, oh, I need some business, whatever, I need you to help me this was. Okay, and she rushes out. And one time I said to myself, why don't you just tell the person, I mean, just like, I can't come. Why don't you say that? Listen, I'm talking to my husband right now. I don't want nobody to interrupt me right now. I'm not. Just leave me alone. For that matter. Sometimes you have to be rude with people sometimes. Just let them leave you alone. Okay? Because just like when you're rebuking the devil, if you sometimes you talk, oh please, no. Right? With indignation come inside it. And you say, I command you in the name of the Lord Jesus. Okay? The blood of Yeshua the Great against you. You know what I'm saying to you? And sometimes you really have to get to that point. And so, and then when you come back now, you're a different person. Yelling and screaming and whatever, and I'm saying to them, you can't even get a word in. And in truth and in fact, a lot of the things that she was saying to me, are things that that person wanted to tell me himself, but didn't have the nerve, didn't have the gall to come in front of me and tell me something like that. You must be out of your mind. Okay? So you mess with your wife. You know the Bible tells you about Samson when they wanted to find out what the answer was for the riddle. Right? They went and beguiled his wife. And so she gave them the answer. And when Samson found out that they got the answer and he knew they couldn't have gotten it otherwise than through his wife, he said, you are proud of my heifer. As I said, I know man, it's a trick. You mess with my wife, that is the reason why you got the answer. Okay? Otherwise you couldn't get no answer like that. And Samson was mad. Okay? And eventually they still ended up killing her because they couldn't catch him. Because the idea was to catch him, and they really couldn't care less about her anyway because she was a Philistine. Right? Do you know the story? Right? That was the first wife he had before he had the more dangerous one that came afterward. That's Delilah. She's the more famous one. Right? The first one didn't have a name. So I did a study about Samson too. Right? Because Samson didn't even realize what was going on. And he was like blind to what the devil was doing with him in marriage. And it brought him down to destruction. Okay? So, where was I with this thing now? Let me see if I can find my notes here. So, let's go now with this thing here. So I said to you that what was going on, I had no idea, but I sought the Lord. And when he spoke to me, he told me that. Now when I spoke to my ex about it, her first response was like, it seems stupidness. I tell her like, what are you trying to suggest? Are you trying to suggest like, I'm having a fear, I'm doing something? I said, I'm not trying to say that, but I'm trying to tell you that something is wrong here. Okay, something is wrong here. You need to cut off the connection. Right? But of course she figured she was her own grown woman, and I couldn't tell her what to do. Okay, so I'm saying to you, even last week I said about, I know if it were the reverse, like if she was telling me to do something like that, it would be hell in the house. Hell, constantly. Okay, because no woman liked the idea of several, her husband gonna prefer another woman over her. Okay, and in truth, but I mean, some women they tell them that, some of them they've been telling them like, well, oh, you must bear it patiently, and you must be a nice lady and whatever, because God told you all those things. Some of these things they brainwash the woman with these things, so that well, you know, whatever it is, you just do exactly what your husband tells. But there are some women I know directly, it's not happening. You can't brainwash them with that. It's not going to happen. Okay. So I know that she was like that, because sometimes she would tell me personally, like, don't mess with me. Okay, don't you mess with me. So it's a good thing I don't do that. She tell me that, don't mess with me. I'm not a person you're going to play those games with. I see other men doing to their wife, not going to have with me. Okay? But I'm saying to you, don't have this attitude of like, your spouse is telling you like, I don't like so and so because, and they say, oh, it's nothing. Right? Because in truth and in fact, I'm saying, if it is something to your spouse, and the spouse is bringing it to your attention, then it at least, for a matter of respect and a matter of wisdom, you should pay attention to it. Because it might look like nothing to you for real, but in truth and in fact, it's something. You see? And I've learned in life that my experience is that sometimes, even if the woman doesn't take this thing seriously as something, I take it as something. You see, and sometimes I've heard like, well, how come you're almost like you're too cautious? I said, it's fine, let me be cautious. You know, because I'd rather stay out of trouble than get in trouble and try to get out of it. My daddy used to say 95% of our salvation is dependent upon us keeping out of sin. Okay, not to get into it and try to come back out. Because the coming back out, you know, is you have no idea, there's hell in it. Okay? I'm saying, so when we're talking about spirits, for example now, so you go and you get yourself tied up in a situation with a woman, another woman, man, somebody. Okay? That person's spirit gets tied up to you. And sometimes you don't know. I was talking to a guy I worked with some years ago, and I was telling him about these things about the Bible talk about, because the Bible says in 1 Corinthians chapter 6, it talk about when a man is joined to a harlot, they become one, right? They become one, right? So it said two shall be one, but it said, but it's not just one in the flesh, as people think, in spirit too. So you go out and you carry the spirit of another woman back onto your home, come leave it on your wife. And you having those conflicts going on, even in your bedroom, and you don't know. And you're going another woman again, and another woman, and another woman. As this guy told me, my coworker, he said, man, he want to go all over the whole America. You understand? I mean, women all over the whole America. To him is that fulfillment of life, as much of them as possible, right? But it's not so simple, because your soul, your spirit gets tied up, and not to mention the fact that you exchange your DNA with somebody, that person exchange your DNA with you. Okay, part of you goes with her, and part of her goes with you. Yes, and you just think it's nothing. It doesn't work like that. Right? That's a physical, which you can see, but then there's the spiritual part of it, which God showed me these things afterward. These things are dangerous, right? Tie up your life. And so you come now, crying to your wife, okay, give me another chance, whatever. What is she giving you another chance for? Okay, giving you another chance could mean even diseases like AIDS and chlamydia and deadly diseases which are natural. Okay? Alright? Giving you another chance could mean tying up our spirit, tying up our soul with somebody you've been messing with. Alright? And so this is what this person was doing to my ex, tying up her spirit. And actually pulling her, cutting her off from me. But I would not know, except God revealed it to me. And when I spoke to her about it, she took it as nothing. Because just as when God spoke to me and He said to me, don't you notice that every time when she come back from meeting with that person, that you and I have a quarrel? When I said that to her, she should have clicked and said to herself, but it's really true. That's why when the angel of God spoke to me, the Lord spoke to me and said, I said, but this is true. She didn't have to be up 35, 40,000 feet up in the air in an Air Canada flight. It's not because I was up in the air why I realized that. If I was down on the ground, even in a mine, in a coal mine, I would have realized that. It doesn't matter. As long as I'm awake and I'm conscious, you must can put the pieces together and say, well, hold on, but this is true. So, what should we do? Obviously, cut the connection, chop it off, right? Chop it off, get rid of it. Somebody's tying up your spirit so that you be cut off from your spouse. And eventually, it happened. Right? So I've been a victim of that, and I told you, and as for my other friend I told you about before, her mother decided that she should never marry me. And her mother decided actually she'd never get married. So that all of that happened. Tied up. You go to work every day, you excel in your job, you maybe get the best grades and get promotions and all these things, but you are in bondage. You're not free. Okay, and so you and what actually made afterwards things went worse though is that sometimes it still happens that that person gets married to somebody and is tied up in that marriage. Okay, tied up in it. You see, this is the occult. You know, and you want somebody to marry you, or you want anything to love you, as they said, and you are using witchcraft to get that person into your bosom. And sometimes I said to myself, how do people do these things, right? That you would have somebody who's, say, your wife or your husband, and you know that is through lies and deception and witchcraft and these things, why you got this person here. And that person there all the while just walking around like a puppet on a string, you know. And the person doesn't even know that it's really just a puppet. I will die in that condition. Except they get a revelation from God and they might be able to extricate themselves from it. And that's one of the reasons why I said to myself that it's something I want to pray about. I won't be able to do that today. But that's something I believe we need to pray about, because so many people have been victims of these things, right? And maybe you talk about where your husband cheated on you, yes. It's a serious thing, yeah. And I've never felt comfortable about this thing where they talk about, well, they're trying to save your marriage, so they must stay together and they must divorce. I always say, listen, if they want a divorce, let them decide that. That's none of my business. I'm not going to tell you that. A minister, that's none of your business what they want to do. Don't get involved in it. Okay, don't talk about you trying to save their marriage, because they already killed the marriage. It was already killed. Okay, if they can resuscitate it, that's between them and God. But you can't do it. Okay, and don't try to get it like you try to force them to do it. You know, I remember this time this brother, he got the girl pregnant in church, and they told him he must marry her. I was a teenager at the time, and I said to myself, but I don't think that's right. I mean, granted he got her pregnant, but he didn't intend to get a wife. So why are you going to tell him that he must marry the girl? Well, they forced him to get married, and he got married, but what, you know what, you have to tell him what happened afterwards? Right? You tell them that they're going to have a family. It doesn't work that way. And there's some things that ministers dabble into, and they themselves, you know the reason why they're so quick to do these things? Because they are guilty of the same thing. If their wives knew what they were doing, and many times they say the wives know what they're doing anyway, but they just bear it and grin and bear it all the day long. And they become a laughing stock to women around them. who've been messing with their husband who is a pastor. Did I tell you about that one I spoke about in the nursing home? Right? He would leave the pulpit and he go to the woman's teenage daughter. And I personally had one too I told about. Right? The same person who baptized me, and the water baptism. That's what they were doing. And their mother allowed them, the mother allowed them to do that to their daughter for money. So when they come to you with this thing about must give money to God, and oh, you must give money to God, does God need money? Money, God didn't make money. What does God have to do with money? Do you hear about in the kingdom of God they're going to be any currency or money? You think God interested in money? For what? So you're giving them, somebody say giving them money to God, or what? And so you give your money, so you're giving your money to God. And what do they do with it? They're in prostitution, they're in pornography, they're in devious things like that. So right in the church, there's the deaconess, right? She's getting money from the pastor so that the pastor can sleep with her daughter. Right? And there is somebody who in the church who would want to date this girl, but the girl doesn't respond properly because she's being used. She's messed up. Right? And the Bible clearly tells you about, and in the law of Moses, but it said, do not prostitute your daughter. What on earth is that? For outright prostitution. Right? Happening right in the church. That's why I told you that I don't cry on people's church. I don't even come on this program. I couldn't care less what church you come from. I'm talking about your character and the things you do. Because in every church, I'm not talking about something I'm in somebody else's church. It's not in my own church that I grew up in. Corruption, wickedness, occult, evil, Satanism. It's everywhere. And don't tell me it's not in your church. I'm not going to believe you. It might be more abundant in certain places than others, but it is there. Okay? The deception of the adversary. Right? And so I said, I hope this thing is going. So I said, you know, we need to pay attention to these things because, let me shift this thing a little bit. Because what is really happening is that, you know, so I'm saying to you, the deception that has been going on, the spiritual warfare. So we need to be able to rise up against these things. But what are we going to do if we don't understand? As I told you, I didn't know until God gave me this revelation. And even though I tried to correct things, it didn't. And later on, God is saying to me, you know, when I told you that you should move from where you were, I was trying to save you, your marriage from collapse. But although your wife said she believed and then she turned again and changed her mind, okay, then that's the reason why your marriage came to total ruin. I was pulling you away from something that's happened when God was trying to take Lot from Sodom, right? When they had the war, and when Abraham went and brought him back, he didn't see the handwriting on the wall. So what did he do? He went right back to Sodom. The next time when he was coming out was just the clothes on his back. Right? And just the grace and mercy of God because of Abraham. Okay? And his life was in ruins. Because he did not know, as the Bible said, the day of his visitation. Same thing is happening to this world today. They didn't know the day of visitation when Jesus came. Right, when he was born, when he walked this earth, right, and they don't know the day of visitation with the signs of the end that are upon the earth right now. So I say this to you that, right, I missed anything here. I said that there are evil forces warring for control of your destiny, right? There's a lot of witchcraft going on which ties up people's souls and spirits, right? It's a marriage requires a true and faithful heart. But you must have wisdom and power of the Holy Ghost to discern and fight against the forces of darkness instead of fighting against each other. Okay? So you're fighting against each other, and sometimes you don't even understand it. I remember one time I said to my ex, I said, listen, hey, don't you think we have had enough fighting? Can we just stop this whole thing? I mean, just, you know, I'm just talking about sometimes you have to just be practical, right? I said, like, don't you think we have argued enough? Do you think we have had enough arguments? Don't you think we have had enough? Can we just stop it? Just, you know what I'm trying to say? Because, as I said to you, you know, if I find that a food constantly upsets me, I know some people, like they say, well, they eat the food upset and then they take a tom, okay, they take an antacid. That's not me, okay? If I find that this thing is not good for me, what I do? Cut it off. That's it. What am I supposed to take the thing and then it upset me and whatever, and then I'm trying to find a medicine for it, when all I had to do was just stop doing it? Easy as that. Okay? Easy as that. So I said, why can't we just stop? Why can't we just stop? Okay? But as I said to you, evil forces working to split up and drive you as far as the east from the west. That when you see each other, you can't even say hello. Because the forces of darkness keep you apart. Right? You don't answer the phone, nothing. Okay? And so your spirit gets tied up by the devil. I can't tell you the end of this whole story because even now I don't even know the end. Yeah. Me, David Ferguson, Livingston Ferguson, tell that. I don't know the end of this story because, you know, they said when you try to get closure to things, there are things I don't have any closure until now because I cannot explain them. I don't know. But what I do know is this, that they happen. And that's why in my spirit I'm saying that we need to pray about these things. And I hope that the next time God would have it to be so that we can have another Open Revival program. We're going to pray about these things. Because I know not only I've been a victim of these things in the worst way, but you might say, you might say to yourself, David, you think you've been the worst way. You must hear my story. Well, what do you know? Your story might be worse than mine, I don't know. Okay? And a lot depends on who you are. You understand? But these things can break you. And I said break you and crumble you to the place where, I mean, you're like pieces of a jar of clay broken up. Right? And it's the only thing is that we know that the potter can put, as they say, the pieces back together again. And only God can do these things, and these things might, you know. So I'm saying that, you know, these things are going on in marriages, and don't mess around with your marriage, man. I'm telling you, this thing about you have so much time, but you don't want to talk to your wife. I remember I used to chat to my ex all the way from work until I get home. Till I used to use up my minutes. Remember those days when you use minutes used to run out and we get unlimited minutes. The next thing I know, my bill went up. I said, what's going on? I said, oh, I use up my minutes. Like I would talk to her from my leave work straight home. How many guys are doing that nowadays? Right? Maybe you have a crisis or something, or maybe you use something into you. But no! Why? Why can't you check your spouse from when you leave home till you get to work, or vice versa? Why can't you do that? When you leave work till you get home? No, because I don't know why. I know where I am. Okay. And she know that my commute about 30 minutes. And so if I tell her I'm leaving work now, in 30 minutes I must be home. But I intend to stop somewhere else. And so I need